Hey, what's up, guys? It's Latte from GG Goofy Goober Trolls. Here to bring you my latest deck. I've been running this deck for a while. I've been topping just about every locals I've had, except recently, but that's another story. This deck seems to be doing pretty good. It's my own build if you're into UAs. I know they're not really meta. They're not meta at all, actually. But if you know how to use them right, you can set up really good plays, and they can either be a stalling deck or a brute force deck. So yeah, I'll get into them. So first, to start off the deck, you need 3 midfielders. These guys are an essential to the deck. Without them, the deck will not run. Period. He's your level 4. He's a way to get your other UAs out there. Now, for people who aren't familiar with UAs, all UAs have the same first effect. That you can target one UA monster on the field, send it back to special summon one UA monster, or, whatever UA monster it is from your hand. So, as long as you get midfielder out there, you can set up tons of combination plays. Their field card also helps. I'll explain that later, though. Next, your attacker, way to get over things, is your Mighty Slugger. I run 3 of him. He's basically Armades. I don't know if you can see him there. No card effects or cards can be activated while he's attacking. 2300 attack. Again, can be special summoned out there. And then, you don't have to keep him out there. You can go main phase 2, send him back for your defense guy, which you run 2 of. 2 Goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's really good because he can target another UA monster, and it can't be destroyed once per turn by battle or by card effect once that turn. So you can target himself. So let's say someone Raigekis your field, you can use him to target himself. He's just a very he's painful to get over. I've had so many people complain to me about why I have to have him on the field. Especially if you're facing Lightsworn. They just milling away your cards while you're sitting on a Goalkeeper. Because, you use the effect and JD can't get over him. So yeah, you run two of him, because you really don't get rid of him that much. Then you run 1 Perfect Ace. Perfect Ace is your negator in the deck. Basically, when a card effect or monster effect would be activated, negate the activation of the effect, and if you do, discard 1 card from your hand, destroy the card. It's a quick effect, so you can use it whenever. You can use it once per turn. So that helps extremely, because you can negate whenever, whatever. Then you have Blockbacker. He's your other butt of the deck. He's got 2700 defense, but his effect's a little different than Goalkeeper's. His is that whenever a monster is special summoned, you can change its battle position and negate its effect for the turn. So he's also another good thing to have out there. Now, when you have typically how you go with these cards is you go Slugger beginning of turn, main phase 1. You attack with Slugger, main phase 2, you go Goalkeeper or Blockbacker to sit on. Some people like to sit on Perfect Ace, but to be honest, I really don't like doing that because, again, some of the decks with bigger attacks, like Spearpiece, who has Apelio, or Ulti Apelio, and Nekroz, that have however much attack they have. I'm not really sure. I don't really play Nekroz, but I know that they have higher attacks than some of the cards. Those can get over Perfect Ace. Yeah, you can negate their effects, but if they don't use their effects just attacked, it's a problem. You lose your Perfect Ace. Really, all these cards are kind of situational. You have to really know how to run the deck to play them. But also, to make this deck more consistent, sometimes you don't always get cards out there. I play 2 Cyber Dragon. This deck likes to go second because you get the extra draw, and 2, your opponent has a monster on field, so you can special summon with Cyber Dragon. Depending on really how many monsters, or if they really like to go first, sometimes I'll side in a Evilswarm Mandragora, because that just helps too. If they like a deck against, let's say, Quillfort, where I have cards on the field, but they clearly have more monsters than I do, I can just go Mandragora with an extra monster out there, and need be, if I don't have a midfielder, I can tribute Mandragora for one of my other UAs. Then again, for consistency, I play 2 Summoner Monk. If you don't have a Rhoda in hand, but you have something like a UA Stadium, which you run 3 of in this deck, and you really can go without a third UA Stadium. But I run it in the fact for Summoner Monk, because you can discard it and get the effect off to get your midfielder on field. Then, depending on what the situation is, you can either go into a level 4 or rank 4, or you can go into the rest of your cards, which usually you never extra deck. You never make extra deck cards in this deck. Yeah, that's it for the monsters, guys. I'm pretty sure it's like a 14 monster count, or 15 maybe. Small monster count, but really these guys are kind of hard to get over because you're constantly switching them back and forth. So that's just my preference. It usually works against the mirror match. It works. This deck is fantastic. It's perfect. Because they always have a monster out there. So if you go second, you can still get the summon off of Cyber Dragon, or however else you want to do it, or Monarch Stormforth. I'll get into the spells right now. All right, you're gonna run 3 UA Stadium. This card is possibly the best card in the deck. I know you're probably thinking it's a spell card. Well, yeah. It lets you set up huge combos. You can get your Sluggers attack up to, 8,000 sometimes. Not obviously in one turn, in the course of 2 turns. Because once you have 2 monsters on field, you can set up its combo for every time you special summon a UA monster. Each monster you currently control on the field gains 500 attack. And plus, when you normal summon a UA monster, you get to search off of your stadium. So, it adds consistency to the deck, also boosting up your Slugger. Now, if you automatically get your Slugger up to 2,800 attack, I mean, that can pretty much mow through anything, and plus they can't activate card effects to it. So, it's hard to get past. Great card, very searchable, terraforming. Next, you run triple Monarch Stormforth. This card is an essential to the deck. You need this card. 1, not only does it help you get over your opponent's monsters, but 2, it also adds consistency to the deck to be able to get out your goalkeeper, not your goalkeeper, your Perfect Ace or your Mighty Slugger. Usually you go Mighty Slugger for it because, if I'm not mistaken, goalkeeper's too high to tribute for. No, I'm mistaken. Okay, I'm thinking about Blockbacker. Yeah, you can go into goalkeeper. Easy and quick. You can tribute your opponent's monster for your own. So it really speeds up the deck, really helps. Next, you play 2 Power Jersey. Now, some people like to play it at 3. I personally don't, because once you get a Power Jersey, we pretty much have it. I mean, unless your opponent activates Macro, which is a big thing here. Power Jersey effect, for people who don't know, is when you can attach to a UA monster and it gains an additional 1,000 attack. Now, if it destroys a monster by battle, it can make a second attack that turn. But any battle damage caused through battle with an opponent's monster while Power Jersey is equipped is doubled to your opponent. So this card is basically just a big, slap to your opponent. If Mighty Slugger wasn't hard enough to get by before, now it's even harder because of Power Jersey. Also, though, it has a negative. If this UA monster that this card's attached to is not returned to your hand by your next standby phase, banish this card and the monster equipped to it. So that can be a problem. But its other effect is that if the monster it's equipped to is sent back, send this card to the graveyard. But then, if the monster is sent back to your hand, this card gets sent back to your hand too. But if Macro is on the field, obviously this card would get banished instead because it says it has to hit grave first. So just watch out for that. But it is a good card because you can go into Slugger, attack over 2 monsters, or attack over 1 and still get a direct attack of 2,300. Or if you special summon him while Stadium's on the field, it's 2,800 or 3,800. So it's a big help. Next card you run 2 Terraforming. Allows you to search out your Stadium. Nice, easy card. Not much else you can say about that. 2 Rhoda. Some people like to run it at 3, and usually I'll run it at 3, but lately I've just been finding I draw into midfielder a lot more lately, so I just kind of sided out the other one. But I probably will be adding it back in just because it makes the deck so much more consistent. Next, you run 2 Lance. Helpful card. especially if someone activates a card that just instantly boosts their attack. Like, let's say they go Decisive Armor on one of their cards. Now their attack's boosted by, I think, 1,000, and that's a problem if you're running into with Slugger. So you activate Lance, you know, nice, quick helper. Next, Kaiser Coliseum. This card adds such a trolling feature to the deck. If you're sitting on a Kaiser and a Goalkeeper, your opponent can't do anything. I mean, I'm sure they can, but it's anytime I've done it, that's the combination that really, it's the stall power of this deck that lets me just have your opponent deck out. Or, you know, once you get your Slugger to hand, you can switch it out. Now you have a Slugger on field, and they still can't do anything. So, this especially is good against Shaddolls, Senjus. I know Shaddolls are a little outdated, but Burning Abyss, because they can't get their multiples of monsters out there. Now, I know they can pop cards, but if you also use... this is the kind of times you can switch to Perfect Ace, because they can't attack over it without getting a bigger monster out there involving 2 monsters. But if you're just sitting on it with Kaiser Coliseum, it solves your problems. Okay, so now you just kind of have your simple spells. You run 1 Snatch Steal, 1 MST, 1 Dark Hole. Personally, I want to get a Raigeki over Dark Hole, but right now I just run Dark Hole because I'll only use Dark Hole when Goalkeeper's on field, because I can just chain Goalkeeper's effect to itself and he's not destroyed. Snatch Steal is also another great thing to increase the consistency of this deck, because you can take your opponent's monster to tribute for. And MST, to be honest, with Perfect Ace's effect, if you really find yourself needing an extra MST, go ahead and, you know, side it in. I personally side it in sometimes if I really need it, like if I'm running a deck, you know, like Harpies, or if I'm playing against Harpies or something like that, because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gotten, I play against Harpies and Hunting Ground, popping my back row, or my Stadium card, or even my Power Jersey. It's a huge pain. So, you know, if you really need to run an extra MST over, you know, feel free to add it in. Next, we'll go to the traps. Let's see, you have... this card helps a lot in the deck. It's called Battle Guard Howling. You can run 2 or 3 of it. Personally, I find to be running into it way too much, especially if I'm versing Senjus. It doesn't do anything. Because they activate their trap, or Spirit Beasts activate their trap, or chain their effect so that they get a replay. Battle Guard Howling, basically, for people who don't know, is if your warrior type monster is targeted for an attack or an effect, what you do is you take the original attack of the monster that the effect is coming from and inflict it to your opponent. Now, the attack and the effect still goes through, but it just helps out that this card, you know, can inflict extra damage to your opponent, and it just helps a lot in this deck to burn them. Then you don't really run too many traps because really you don't need them. Goalkeeper, I keep saying it, but Goalkeeper's a huge part in this deck. He protects you, and you really don't need too much. Really, you do cards that would usually hurt you too, but with Goalkeeper, they don't. So you run 1 Bottomless, 1 Torrential, 1 Deep Prison, 1 Compulse, and 1 Solemn. To be honest, that's really it for the deck. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to, but besides that, it works nicely. I would give you guys an extra deck, but to be honest, I don't use extra deck because I've never had to. I've been running this deck for, I'd say, almost, you know, a few months after it came out. I showed interest in this deck. I created it, you know, didn't really run it, but then I started running it at the tournaments once I finally got my own build for it. I've literally, guys, I cannot tell you how many times that people say, why don't you go into extra deck? Because you don't need to. You really do not need an extra deck. If you guys want to, you know, you can go level 6s, level 5s, but to be honest, the way these cards work, they work like their own extra deck cards. because you run so little of the amount of monsters you need. If you go into a rank 4 with two midfielders or a midfielder and summoner's monk, you have no way of getting these cards back. So if you really wanted to, you can actually run macros in this deck because, or actually no, like I said before, with your Power Jet, I meant to say D-Fisher, but you really do not need those cards. If you make a level rank 4 with two midfielders, you're just wasting your midfielders. If you make a rank 6 with your goalkeepers, you're literally just wasting your protection power. I mean, the only good play I could possibly see with making a rank 6, if you go Photon Strike Mountains, or if you really, really need to, and then you go Gaia, but that's about it. I mean, you really don't need extra deck, guys. Side deck, I actually don't have it on me. I will make another post about my side deck. It's kind of hard to side with this deck. Usually maybe just another MST or Mandragora, but that's really about it, guys. Like I said, this deck's been topping recently against tournament, with a few Necros players, a lot of Yosenju players, a few Spirit Beast players. But yeah, it's been doing great, guys. Yep, that's my deck. Hope you like it. Remember to like, favorite, subscribe, whatever you guys feel like doing. It really helps out our channel a lot. And peace out.